shouting at each other, aren't they? Wow, it's impressive, isn't it? So he shouts that they're all lined up and then he shouts forward. Never know how they do it before, do you? So they're lining up. out at each other, aren't they? Wow, it's impressive, isn't it? shouting at each other, aren't they? Wow, that's impressive, isn't it? So he shouts that they're all lined up and then he shouts forward. Never know how they do it before, do you? So they're lining up.
Called the Pacific Step Up program because we realise that we are a Pacific nation and we have very close bonds and friendships with nations right across the Pacific. But to be honest, our attention had drifted away from the Pacific for a while when we're focusing on counter-terrorism in the Middle East and other issues. So we have engaged in new ways with Pacific nations. To be a good friend, to be present in the region, to listen.
I now give the floor to His Excellency Subramaniam Jaishankar.
Of the baby. Malnutrition is linked to other things like poor feeding practices, poor hygiene practices, malaria. So giving healthy education for mothers is very critical to enable them continue with the prevention of malnutrition. When you see our nurse here, Victoria, she is giving healthy education to the mothers of the babies who are admitted in this inpatient ward, so that when they recover from here, they'll be
Really good to see you. Very good to see you.
Mr. Sunak, President Zelensky, please go ahead. You're online.
Hello, Volodymyr. It's Rishi and Justin.
Well, this is a deal we have signed with Australia because Australia is
이기 때문에 반체제 언론인 가슈크지의 암살 배우로 지목돼 국제사회의 비난을 받고 있는 왕세자로선 민심을 다독이기 위해 경제적 성과가 절실한 상황이라는 얘기도 나왔습니다. 이번 방안에서 사우디 측이 밝힌 투자 계획은 무려 10조 원 규모. 하지만 구속력 없는 양해각서도 적지 않아 실제 성과로 이어질지는 지켜봐야 한다는 목소리도 나옵니다. MBC 뉴스 이학수입니다.
사우디아라비아 실권자로 알려진 무함마드 빈 살만 왕세자가 오늘 새벽 방한했습니다. 2019년 6월 이후 3년 5개월 만에 방한한 빈 살만 왕세자는 0시 30분쯤 서울공항을 통해 입국했으며 한덕수 국무총리가 공항에서 영접한 것으로 전해졌습니다. 윤석열 대통령이 오늘 중 빈 살만 왕세자를 만날 것으로 예상되는 가운데 이재용 삼성전자 회장과 정의선 현대차 그룹 회장 등 재계 총수들도 왕세자와 회동할 예정입니다. 회동이 성사되면 총 사업비 5천억 달러에 달하는 초대형 신도시 사업 네옴시티, 원전, 방위산업 등 분야에서 양국 간 협력 방안에 관한 논의가 진행될 것으로 전망됩니다.
무함마드 빈 살만 사우디아라비아 왕세자가 오늘 새벽 한국을 찾았습니다. 박진준 기자입니다.
무함마드 빈 살만 사우디아라비아 왕세자가 오늘 새벽 서울 공항을 통해 입국했습니다. 사우디아라비아 실권자로 알려진 빈 살만 왕세자는 3년 만에 한국을 찾았습니다. 빈 살만 왕세자는 현재 총 사업비 5천억 달러, 우리 돈 약 660조 원 규모의 사우디 신도시 건설 프로젝트 네옴시티 사업을 주도하고 있습니다. 우리 정부는 빈 살만 왕세자의 한국 방문에 맞춰 한국 기업들과 사우디 정부 간 대규모 사업 협력을 추진하기로 했습니다. 산업통상자원부는 오늘 대한상공회의소에서 열린 한국 사우디 간 투자 포럼에서 국내 기업들과 사우디 간 20여 개의 계약과 양해각서 등을 체결했다고 밝혔습니다. 삼성물산과 한국전력, 포스코 등은 사우디 내 태양광, 그린수소 생산 등을 공동 추진하기로 하는 양해각서를 체결했습니다. 또 네옴시티의 철도시설 협력을 위해 현대 로템과 사우디 간 양해각서를 체결하는 등 화학, 제약 등의 다양한 분야에서 국내 기업들과 협력하기로 했습니다.
Perhaps that might come too slowly?
Yes, well, of course, as also the Senator was alluding to, the law of the sea and the UNCLOS and what we have collectively designed as a system is crucial to deal with these tensions. And we very much call upon every country to de-escalate the tensions in that region. But of course, from the Netherlands to try to solve that issue from that distance, being a middle power, is almost impossible. There we have to work in a collective fashion.
I'm glad actually that you brought up UNCLOS because, of course, modern international law of the sea stems from the great Dutch scholar Hugo Grotius, yeah. And so, well, I hope to see, if not more military or security presence from the Netherlands, I hope to see more emphasis, perhaps the Netherlands playing a more prominent role in terms of supporting UNCLOS. I would like now to turn to questions, please. If you could just raise your hand and grab a mic if anyone has any questions.
They all agree.
They all agree. With who? If no one has any questions, I would like to ask the next question. I believe at the Raisina dialogue in January, which I was present at, Mr. Jaishankar, you mentioned that if there was any relationship that you wished were better between a bilateral relationship between India and another country or region, it would be India and Europe or the European Union. Now that you have one member of Europe here with you, what would you propose you would like to do together to further promote stability and the rule of law?
I mean, there was a context in which I said it. I mean, I'm happy I said it. But I look, if I were to look at the major poles of the international order, I would say, to me, one which is currently underperforming is the one between India and Europe. There are a variety of reasons for it. Part of it is that India historically has treated Europe more in terms of its individual states than the collective European Union, but we are changing there. So at this time, what we would certainly like to see, I mean, Europe collectively is India's largest trade partner. Europe collectively is India's largest investor and is also, by the way, largest.
So what we're going to do this morning is discuss Indian foreign policy, especially in recent times, and we're going to discuss it with the person who's in charge of that foreign policy, and we are going to
largest investment destination. There are a number of European countries, including the prime ministers, where we would be among the top external investors in the local economy. But what we would like to see certainly is an upgrade of that relationship. One, we did some years ago attempt to negotiate a free trade agreement. It didn't work out, but I think today people are quite open to that. The second, which interests me a lot in the current context, is whether actually we have better, stronger, more forthright security conversations. We haven't had that perhaps as much as we should have. So that too is an issue. But there are other big challenges in the world today, challenges of, say, connectivity, challenges of technology, which you raised, challenges of norms, laws, how do international organizations run or don't run. I think there's a lot out there which should be a conversation between India and the EU. And I'm actually
arzobispos de Sevilla, de Oviedo y también de Barcelona, y así como el abad del Escorial, del monasterio del Escorial, es el príncipe Moulay Rashid, es el príncipe heredero de Marruecos. Se especulaba que podía venir el rey, pero finalmente no han venido.
Es también, si no recuerdo mal, a quien vimos en los funerales de Estado por las víctimas del 11M. Quizá en este momento podemos recordar que a primera hora de la mañana comenzábamos este programa especial con la ceremonia de la colocación de esa corona de flores enviada por la Casa Real en el...
Open to that. The second, which interests me a lot in the current context, is whether actually we have better, stronger, more forthright security conversations. We haven't had that perhaps as much as we should have. So that too is an issue. But there are other big challenges in the world today, challenges of, say, connectivity, challenges of technology, which you raised, challenges of norms, laws, how do international organizations run or don't run. I think there's a lot out there which should be a conversation between India and the EU. And I'm actually really happy that immediately after this conference, I'm actually going to Brussels, and I would be attending a meeting of the Foreign Affairs Council of the European Union on Monday, and I look forward to doing that day.
I'm not always happy to go to Brussels, but I'm so happy that you're happy. No, but that was a joke. I agree with you. I agree with you. We should do more. The Netherlands is the second biggest trade partner for India in Europe. And in the European Union, we will be number one when the UK, well, the UK has left, but at the end of the year, they will also leave probably at the end of the year, will also leave the systems of the European Union. And what I have sensed over the years in my dealings with Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, and other politicians in India, is because of that trading relationship, you then start to discuss the other issues, the region. India has a large influence in the region. Of course, up to including Afghanistan, knows what is happening, tries to influence in the course of events, including, of course, a security cooperation, fighting terrorism. All these issues we have to work on closely together. And the only way to do it, and it always starts, almost always starts with a strong trading relationship. And from there to discuss standards and norms, and from that to find out that we work collectively on these values and how to maintain them.
And on the note of values, I think I would like to ask Minister Motegi, we've heard a lot about human rights and values in this forum, but perhaps I hear about it less in my part of the world. And in fact, when one was questioning, when someone was recently questioning the dearth of references to human rights in national security documents from the United States recently, I was told by a Japanese diplomat that in fact indicates the triumph of Japanese diplomacy. So I was a bit surprised to hear that. But I think what I took away from that was that Japan might have a different way of thinking about human rights. Perhaps it's important, but maybe we should be speaking less loudly, but more privately. I wonder whether you could share your thoughts on how we should be thinking about human rights in a time when there's increasing strategic competition.
First of all, including the issue of human rights in the international community, in the country-to-country relationship, who is the winner and who is the loser? That concept in itself, I believe, is quite wrong. How to create win-win situation is something we need to think about. In the security arena, as well as in terms of trade, this is a type of thinking which is quite important. Earlier, there was a question raised as to how do we regard the U.S.-China relationship. U.S. and China both are responsible powers, not in confrontation, but to work together on the various issues, including the North Korean situation, as well as the regional situation and the world economy. And that in itself is important. Therefore, I welcome the agreement between U.S. and China in terms of the first phase of its trade agreement. Now, Japan-U.S. alliance is the cornerstone of Japanese democracy, of the diplomacy, and under the strong Japan-U.S. alliance, Japan and U.S. are working very closely for the regional issues, including our relationship with China. Looking at the Japan-China relationship, we now look at the very stable relationship, including the frequent, the summit level, the communications and the visits. asserted. At the same time, there are still pending issues, and through the summit as well as the foreign ministerial meetings, we are repeatedly raising these issues. What we need to assert must be asserted, and we strongly continue to ask China to take a positive response. This is not just about Japan, but for the international community, what we need to assert to China need to be asserted. For example, early this year, I visited the Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia, and those the East Asian, the ASEAN countries. The situation in the South China Sea seems to be worsening. So, including militarization of the disputed features, the attempts to unilaterally change the status quo will threaten the regional peace and the security, and which may have significant impact not only on Asia but for the international community as a whole. For South China Sea issue, Japan would like to continue to strongly oppose any unilateral attempt to change the status quo and the coercion of any other countries. Non-militarization and UNCLOS should be the norm. We will strongly continue to ask for peaceful solution of the conflicts. And furthermore, the COC should be effective and substantive and centered on the UNCLOS, and also agree with the international law and the stakeholders' legitimate rights and the interests for those users of the South China Sea must not be undermined. This is true.
Traer matrimonio ante el ministro de la Iglesia y la comunidad cristiana ahora reunida. Cristo bendice copiosamente vuestro amor conyugal, y Él, que os consagró un día con el santo bautismo, os enriquece hoy y os da fuerza con un sacramento peculiar para que os guardéis mutua y perpetua fidelidad y podáis cumplir las demás obligaciones del matrimonio. Por tanto, ante esta asamblea, os pregunto por vuestra intención. Don Felipe de Borbón y Grecia, príncipe de Asturias, y doña Leticia Ortiz Roca Solano, venís a contraer matrimonio sin ser coaccionados, libre y voluntariamente.
Sí, venimos libremente.
¿Estáis decididos a amaros y respetaros mutuamente durante toda la vida?
Sí, estamos decididos.
¿Estáis dispuestos a recibir de Dios responsable y amorosamente los hijos y a educarlos según la ley de Cristo y su Iglesia?
Sí, estamos dispuestos.
Así pues, ya que queréis contraer santo matrimonio, unid vuestras manos y manifestad vuestro consentimiento ante Dios y su Iglesia.
Yo, Felipe, te recibo a ti, Leticia, como esposa y me entrego a ti. Y prometo serte fiel en la prosperidad y en la adversidad, en la salud y en la enfermedad, todos los días de mi vida.
Yo, Leticia, te recibo a ti, Felipe, como esposo y me entrego a ti. Y prometo serte fiel en la prosperidad y en la adversidad, en la salud y en la enfermedad, todos los días de mi vida.
El Dios de Abraham, el Dios de Isaac, el Dios de Jacob, el Dios que unió a nuestros primeros padres en el paraíso, confirme este consentimiento mutuo que os habéis manifestado ante la Iglesia y en Cristo os dé su bendición, de forma que lo que Dios
Ich bin auch überhaupt eingeladen.
You changed. I did because I have to say we here I need to go by order.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Merci. Merci. Merci beaucoup.
is not enough to take down 3 strikes. This aircraft is my body. If they are not enough, then I must put my soul into it. There are pilots like you in every generation, and I've failed every last one of them.
He's still flying, but his plane's been damaged. Finish him off, Trigger.
I have a lock.
Roger. Enemy has a lock on you. It's a hit. The unidentified aircraft is going down.
He got him.
Trigger has splashed a bandit.
Can you hear me? Pilot with the 3 strikes. This was all due to my ego. I unleashed pure chaos upon this world, just so I could keep my wings. Put a stop to the drone production.
Is this a message to Trigger? What does it mean? I don't think this war is over just because we shot down Mr. X. Yeah, it's gonna take something else entirely to end this thing. I just don't know what.
The resupply went well. We should be okay on food and fuel.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Steve McShay. My call sign's Richter. I'm from Fighter Squadron VF-101. We're from NAS Oceana, Virginia, and I'm going to show you the business end of the F-14 Tomcat you're about getting ready to see fly.
Hi folks, my call sign is Dutch. My name is Lieutenant Dave Halperin, and I'm going to give you a walk around the outside of the Tomcat.
The F-14 is a multi-role fighter attack aircraft, and in other words, we can fight our way into the battlefield air-to-air, go into the target area, drop the bombs with precision strike capability, and fight our way back out. Recently, we've seen action in Bosnia, southern Iraq. Both of us just returned not too long ago from a tour in southern Iraq where we patrolled the no-fly zone. The entire plane is designed around having two people in it. You can't operate it with a single person. Everything we do is as a crew. We train as a crew. And if you're operating correctly, you think as a crew. You think alike. If I happen to be falling behind with a task I'm doing at the time, Dutch can pick it up immediately and vice versa. So we're built around that. The F-14 has the most powerful airborne radar in a fighter you'll ever see and probably may ever see again. And because we have so much power and capability and we can keep track of so many targets out there, we need a man solely dedicated just to operate that machine. I have to just keep it up airborne, pointing in the right direction in the meantime.
It is such a dynamic environment. We're doing things down very low at 200 feet that the pilot has to spend almost 90% of his time looking outside. He doesn't have time to come back inside and check his instruments. And that's what he's relying on me for, to verbally tell him what his instruments are reading.
The bulk of our show it's a power show is what we have. We're the dragster of the air show, and you're going to see pure brute power out of the back end of the F-14.
Hey, why don't you come with me? I'm going to show you around the plane. Hey, the first point I want to bring out about the F-14 is take a look at this landing gear. Look how big it is. Compare this to the F-16 or the F-15 or any other nation's aircraft, and you'll see a big difference. The reason Navy landing gear has to be so big is basically what sets apart naval aviators from anybody else in the world, is we have to land on a carrier. It's a pretty big nose. If we could open up the nose, what you would see is a big radar in here, a big flat radar. F-14, arguably one of the most powerful radars in the world.
Approaching the speed of sound. Watch the vertical departure from high speed.
On the ship, deck space, on the aircraft carrier, deck space is a premium. So we have to get the jet as small as possible to get as many jets as we can on the carrier flight deck. And that wing will move out in its full forward out position. We call that 20 degrees, and that is what we use for takeoff, for landing and takeoff. And then, as a function of airspeed, the wings will sweep back, meaning the faster we go, the more the wings will sweep back. What's unique about the F-14 in general is its size. But the size of this horizontal tail is the same size of a wing on an A4. Being big has its advantages and disadvantages. Its advantages, one for us, is we can carry a lot of gas. We don't have to refuel as often as a Hornet does. That's an advantage of being big. Being big, we can carry a lot of ordnance. We can carry a lot of air-to-ground ordnance. We can carry a lot of air-to-air ordnance. That's an advantage of being big. A disadvantage of being big, the enemy can see us easy. We are so big that he can pick us up visually a long way away. This right here is what separates